I'm an artist. I draw a lot and have been studying visual arts for just over 2 years, and I regularly bring my iPad around with me. I have had a Patreon for people to commission me. So a little over a year ago, I was sitting in a Starbucks near my house when a guy came up to me to see what I was drawing. I showed him and told him it was a commission for a client. It was a quite provocative drawing of the character Samus from Metroid that I was being paid £45 to do. He complimented my work and how good it was, seeing as I was a home artist, and sat down opposite me and began to talk to me about the game. I chatted back for a short while as I drew, and the topic changed to me. He told me how pretty I was and if I wanted to go on a date. I turned him down as I had a boyfriend at the time, and he left me his number. I eventually ran into him again outside an art supply store, and he asked me why I hadn't texted him. I told him my boyfriend wasn't too comfortable about me messaging guys who hit on me. I changed the subject, and he told me he was a game designer and that he was looking for some wall paint so he could repaint his apartment. I chatted with him for a short while and told him I needed to go, and he left, telling me to text him. I didn't. I saw him a few times after that, but always avoided him as it was starting to get creepy and I was clearly not interested in him. I continued my work until I received an odd commission on my Patreon. I do take not safe for work commissions, but they are usually game characters or anime characters. I usually get sent a base image of the person they want me to draw, and I draw it. The email started quite casually, a request of a girl naked on a bed, nothing too lewd until I saw the image they gave me. It was a drawing of their own, not of too high quality, but eerily looked like me. I can always refund and turn down commissions, but when I saw the price he was offering, I couldn't. £140 for a poster-sized, high-quality, not safe for work drawing. I was low on money and needed it desperately, so I agreed. However, as I began to draw it, I kept getting emails. They were chatty and mostly asked about the progress and photos. One week they asked about my number since their Wi-Fi would be down, and I reluctantly agreed. It was the guy from the coffee shop. It was his number. I immediately didn't know how to react. When I confronted him and asked him how he found my Patreon, I got a casual kind of reply back saying he just wanted to appreciate my art skills and asked if I was enjoying his commission. I told him no, and that this was turning way too uncomfortable for me, and when I asked him whether on purpose he made it look like me, he didn't reply. I freaked out and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't call the police and I couldn't get him to go away. That same weekend my boyfriend broke up with me, and I posted a message on my Patreon that I'd be on pause for all commissions for a few days due to a breakup, and I suddenly saw him everywhere. I saw him around the coffee shops, in grocery stores, in the pharmacy, waiting for the bus, and the worst, outside my apartment. I felt so overwhelmed and so uncomfortable. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't feel safe in my own home, and he kept emailing me. I had enough. I messaged him and told him I was refunding his money and he wasn't getting his commission. I refunded his money and blocked his number and his email. When he tried to commission me again, I refunded his money and told him if he continued, I'd press charges. He left me a message a couple weeks later outside my apartment, and a message was, "I'll find a way," and that was it. I moved out of that apartment shortly after, and I've never seen him since, nor heard from him. So to my creepy commissioner, let's not meet again.
Number 2.
My friend's sister had this friend she went to school with. She told her over winter break one time, her aunt called her and asked her to house sit for 3 weeks while she was out of the country. She was reluctant at first because she's from Tennessee and her aunt lived in Massachusetts. She said yes eventually and went up there after the semester ended. She didn't know anyone up there, so she began going to bars and using Tinder to meet people. She hung out with a few but wasn't connecting with any of them. A few days in, she began hearing weird noises, such as a creaking and doors closing downstairs. She called her aunt to ask if anyone could have access to the house, or if the house could possibly be haunted. Her aunt said no, and that it's probably just the house settling or the heating unit causing creaks or blowing doors. The noises continued for the next few days, and she called the police to ask if anyone could come out and check it out because she felt unsafe and that she was there alone. The cop replied that all of their units were busy at the time, but they could send over one in a few hours to check it out. 5 minutes later, a swarm of police cars showed up and stormed into the house. They searched the house and found one of the guys she went on a Tinder date with in the basement, setting up a torture chamber to torture her. While on the phone, the cop heard another line pick up when she had said she was alone in the house, and he knew someone else was there. So he lied, saying their units were busy to make sure the man was not alerted.
Number 3.
This story begins when I was in 4th grade, so I was about 9, as I was a bit young for my grade. Because of me being younger than the other kids, I didn't get along with them very well. So, whenever we would go out to recess, I would make sure to bring whatever book I was reading at the time. I had my own special place I'd like to sit and read. It was a little corner of the playground where barely anybody went. It was a large patch of clovers and other overgrown plants, and had a large bush with a gap between it and the fence. I used to love to sit there. One day, I went over to my normal spot and sat with my back facing the bush. I had been reading for a while when I thought I heard a rustling sound behind me. Sometimes squirrels and chipmunks would hang out in the gap between the bush and the fence, so I didn't think much of it. That was until I heard heavy breathing and something tugging on my pigtails. Surprised, I whipped my head around, thinking my hair had gotten caught on a branch or something, but instead there was a boy. He was sitting hunched in the gap between the fence and the bush, leaning forward between the branches with his face mostly obscured by leaves and his arms outstretched, trying to grab at my hair. I screamed and bolted for the picnic table area where the supervising teachers were. I was a very shy little thing back then, so I didn't say anything. Instead, for a long time after that, I sat and read by the teachers during recess. About 3/4 of the way through the school year, I made a friend who we'll call Matt. Matt was also a bit of an outcast, and when we got assigned to be in a reading group together, we became fast friends. He was nice enough, but even my 9-year-old self could tell there was something off about him. He was way too clingy, barely ever leaving my side, and constantly coming up with excuses to touch me. I, of course, didn't have any other friends then, so I ignored it. However, one day he told me that he liked me. I had no idea how to react to this, and just said nothing. He apparently took my silence as a yes, because he called my home phone later that night. My mom handed me the phone, saying that a friend was asking to talk to me. Since my parents were watching TV downstairs, I decided to go up to my room so I wouldn't bother them. It was Matt. I could barely even say hello before he started saying some seriously weird stuff. He started saying things like, "What do you want to name our kids? When we get to high school, let's run away and start a family. I bet you look really cute when you're asleep." Now this would be really creepy for anyone, but I was 9. I had no idea how to handle the situation, so I just stayed away from him. He was not happy about this, constantly glaring at me and just being all around super creepy. A year later, I was halfway through 5th grade and had a serious bully problem, but that's a story for another day. It got so bad that my dad decided one day to not wait until the next school year and instead switch schools the following Monday. 5th grade at my new school was great, and starting in 6th grade, my parents got me my first phone. Of course, I called up Clara, who became my friend after the Matt incident, and I let her know about my new phone. A couple more months passed, and one night I got a call from an unknown number. Picking up the phone, I froze when I heard Matt's voice. I still vividly remembered what he said. "Hey baby, I missed you so much. Why did you leave me? Not even a second after he said that, I hung up, blocked his number, and called up Clara, as she was the only person at my school who had my number. Apparently, after school he had asked to see her phone to call his mom as he had forgotten his at home. She handed it over to him as she was a very kind but quite gullible girl. Soon she noticed that he was taking a while and that he had a pen and was writing something on his arm. She yanked her phone away in panic, sprinting off. Looking down at her phone, she saw that he had opened my contact info. I was freaked out, but felt safe as I had blocked his number. That didn't stop him, though. He would call me every single week from a different phone, leaving at least 10 messages every time. Each time I would block one number, he'd somehow call from another one. When I got a new phone, the calls stopped, and I forgot about it until freshman year. At my high school, there were a couple of kids from my old school, and I suddenly remembered Matt. I asked one of the boys, Harry, if he knew what happened to Matt. According to Harry, he got expelled. Teachers had caught him smelling and touching girls' hair, groping female students, trying to sneak into the girls' locker room and writing extremely explicit porn about himself and other girls in the grade, as well as a few other things I can't remember. The realization hit me like a semi-truck, smelling and touching girls' hair, the boy hiding in the bush when I was in 4th grade. Matt, let's never meet again. Ever.